Hello MCR classes, this is going to be our second video with notes, and we are talking about solving equations by factoring and problem solving. This lesson in your book has like 10 different types of problems in it. So we're going to be doing this lesson for a few times. We're going to do about 2 different types of problems at a time. We're going to start out pretty simple here, and it's probably something you guys have already seen. We're going to end up using the zero factor property so that, let's say we have this equation, which should look familiar. It's like the end result of factoring the trinomial. And it's all set to 0. So then what we can do to solve this first example is we set each one equal to 0. Then we just solve for x. So to solve this, we would subtract 2. Those cross out. So x equals -2. And in here we would add 6. And in this case, x equals 6. So that means our solution for this particular problem is going to be -2 and 6. Pretty simple, right? They always start out simple, don't they? Alright, so let me give you one to try on your own. I've got x plus 8 and x minus 5. And we set that equal to 0. So now would be a good time to pause your video and make sure you know how to do this. I know this is a pretty simple skill. So we set both sides equal to 0. And x equals -8. And in this case, x equals 5. We just subtract the 8 and they cross out. And in this case, we have to add 5. So my solution is -8, 5. You might see these with brackets around it. Either way, that would make this true. Alright, so let's look at something a little bit more advanced. Let's start off with, and this is our third example. Say we've got 2x squared plus 9x minus 5, and it all equals 0. Alright, so what we're going to have to do here first is factor this. We're going to factor this so that we get the 2 answers like we have up here. So to factor this, remember, the way I've taught you guys is multiply that first coefficient times the last number. 2 times -5 gives us -10. Alright, I'm just going to rewrite that first term, rewrite that last term. What 2 numbers multiply to give us -10 that will add up to +9? Well, a +10 times a -1 would multiply to get us -10, and 10 minus 1 would give us +9. So then we factor these by grouping. So I can pull 2x out. So I have x plus 5. And then since this is -x, I'll pull -1 out. And I end up with x plus 5. Well, these two are the same, so I know I've done this correctly. So my 2 factors are 2x minus 1 and x plus 5. Now we're on this kind of problem up top. So I set each one of these equal to 0. So I add 1. So now I've got 2x equals 1 and divide by 2. So in this case, x equals 1/2. So over here, I just subtract 5, and I get x equals 5. So our 2 solutions are 1/2 and 5. Now, the only thing is I need to check these now. Oh, I'm sorry, -5. Almost lost my negative there. So I need to check these, and I check these by putting them in the original equation. So I would start off with 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 equals 0. So let's check 1/2 first. So I'm going to put 1/2 in for each x. So 1/2 times 1/2, that gives us 1/4. And then this ends up being 9/2 minus 5. So if 1/2 is actually a solution, then this will work out and have 0 equals 0. So 2 times 1/4 actually gives us 1/2. Because 2 times 1 is 2, 2 over 4 equals 1/2. So 1/2 plus 9/2 gives us 10 over 2, which is actually just 5. Does 5 minus 5 equal 0? Yes. So that's a solution. So then let's plug in our -5 on that original equation. So 2 times -5 squared plus 9 times -5 minus 5 equals 0. Making sure you guys can see this. I apologize if you couldn't. Remember, we have to square it first, so -5 times -5 is 25. 25 times 2 is 50. 9 times -5 gives us -45. And then that minus 5 comes along for the ride. So I end up with 50 minus 50, which is 0. So yes, 1/2. And since the negative's smaller, we'll actually write that first. -5 and 1/2 are our solution. So let me give you one to try on your own. Let's try out 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Now would be the time for you to pause it and see if you're able to solve this on your own. Alright, so we've got to factor this. So 3 times -8 gives me -24. I've got to ask myself what two numbers multiply together that will multiply and get -24, but will add up to +10. So I rewrite my first term, rewrite my last term. I know -12 times 2 is -24, but -12 times 2 would give me -10. So that means I've got to make the 12 positive and the 2 negative. So I'm going to break this 10x up into 12x and -2x. Because 12x minus 2 gives me +10, and 12 times -2 gives me -24. So let's factor this out by grouping. I know I can take 3x out of this front, so I end up with x plus 4. And I can take -2 out of the second one, and I end up with x plus 4. So I've got the same binomial in the parentheses, so I know I did that correctly. So my two factors would be 3x minus 2 and x plus 4. And remember, they were set equal to 0. So now I'm going to set each individual one equal to 0. Solve for x. So I add 2. I've got 3x equals 2. Divide by 3. I've got x equals 2/3. So on this one, I just subtract 4. I get x equals -4. So my proposed solution is -4, whoops, put brackets, and 2/3. To make sure that this is correct, I have to substitute those in. And I know you guys are seeing the fractions and freaking out, but everything's going to be okay. Just take your time, use a calculator if you need to. Everything will be fine. So I'm going to check -4 first. -4 squared is 16, and 3 times 16 is 48. And 10 times -4 gives me -40. And then I just rewrite the rest of it. So we've got 48 minus 48. So yeah, Negative 4 is good. So let's check 2/3. So we're going to plug that 2/3 in for every x that we see. So 2/3 squared means I'm going to multiply 2 times 2 and then 3 times 3. So I've got 3 times. I end up with 4/9. And then 10 times 2/3 ends up being, we'll just keep it as 20/3 minus 8. So 3 times 4 is 12, 12/9. I would simplify, or I can look at it like this, where this crosses out makes 1, that makes 3. So I end up with 4/3 plus 20/3 minus 8. Well, 4 plus 20 is 24/3 minus 8, and 24 divided by 3 is 8, and 8 minus 8 does equal 0. So yes, those are a correct solution, those numbers, negative 4 and 2/3. All right, so check Schoology. You've got 4 problems on there, and hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow on our Zoom meeting. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask through Schoology, or if you need to hit that Remind app, I check that a couple times a day too. Have a good day, guys.